The morning Helen turned 19, there was no cake, there was no celebration. There was only the familiar weight of a wooden tray balanced on her head and the long dusty stretch of the Lagos-Ibadan expressway, already filling with lorries and danfo buses before the sun had properly risen. She had been hawking since she was 16. Bottled water first, then provisions, biscuits, sweets, sachets of milk, whatever sold fastest in the heat. She knew every regular, every truck driver who bargained too hard, every woman who bought on credit and paid the following week. She knew this road the way she knew her own heartbeat. David came into her life on a Thursday. He was standing beside a broken-down bus with his bag on the ground and his head in his hands, and something about the way he looked, not helpless exactly, but honest about being lost, made Helen stop. She sold him a bottle of water. He told her he had missed his bus to Ibadan and had just enough money left for either transport or food, not both. Helen gave him a meat pie from her tray. She did not charge him for it. He came back the following Thursday, then every Thursday after that. Within 6 months, they were promised to each other. David was in his second year at the University of Ibadan, studying business administration. His father had died the previous year and left behind nothing but debt. His mother was sick. He was managing on a partial scholarship that barely covered his hostel fees. Helen did not hesitate. She restructured her entire day around him. She hawked longer hours, took fewer breaks, and began sending money to Ibadan every 2 weeks. She kept it between herself and God and David. David promised her. He said it plainly more than once. The day I graduate and get a job, I am coming straight back for you. We will marry properly. You will never carry that tray again. Helen believed him. She had no reason not to. The years that followed were not easy years. They were the kind of years that leave marks. Helen's tray got heavier, her savings got thinner. There were months when David's school fees came due at the same time the landlord came knocking, and Helen had to choose, and she always chose David. She ate garri when she had it and skipped meals when she did not. She mended her one good dress so many times the needle knew the fabric better than she did. She did not complain. Complaining felt like betrayal. David called when he could. His voice over the phone was warm and grateful and full of tomorrow. He told her about his courses, his lecturers, the things he was learning. He called her his backbone. He called her his reason. He said her name like it was something precious. In his final year, his project supervisor demanded a fee for approval. David called Helen on a Sunday night, his voice tight and ashamed. Helen sold her sewing machine the next morning. Her mother had left it to her. It was the only thing in the world that had belonged to someone she had lost. She stood in the buyer's compound and watched the man carry it away, and she told herself it was an investment, that David was her future, that futures were worth more than the past. David graduated on a bright Saturday in July. Helen was not there. She could not afford the transport, but she stayed up all night and prayed for him and cried a little when she finally slept, though she could not have said exactly why. He called the next morning. He sounded different, lighter, like a man who had crossed a river and was already looking at new territory. He said, "I did it, Helen. I actually did it." She said, "I know. I'm so proud of you." He said, "Things are going to change now." He was right. They did. It started slowly. The calls became shorter, then less frequent. Then David got a job, a real one, with a multinational company on Victoria Island, and the calls became something Helen had to chase rather than receive. She told herself it was the adjustment. New job, new city, new pressure. She gave him time. Then he asked her to move to Lagos. Her heart lifted. She packed everything she owned into one bag and arrived at the address he sent her, a small flat in Ikorodu, far from his office, far from his world, on the other side of the Third Mainland Bridge, as if distance was the point. David visited on weekends. Sometimes. He was always dressed differently now. Fitted shirts, polished shoes, a new phone every few months. He brought her things sometimes. Groceries, a small sum of money. He was not cruel in those early days. He was just increasingly absent in a way that had nothing to do with how many hours he was physically in the room. The first time he said it, they were getting ready to attend his colleague's birthday dinner. He looked at her in her best dress, the mended one, the only one she had pressed twice to make it look right. And he said quietly, almost gently, "Helen, maybe you should stay home tonight. The people at this thing are a certain kind of people. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable." Helen looked at him for a long time. She said, "You mean you don't want to feel uncomfortable?" David said nothing, which was its own kind of answer. She stayed home. She sat in that small Ikorodo flat and she thought very carefully about the girl who had sold her dead mother's sewing machine for this man. She thought about 4 years on that expressway in the heat. She thought about the meat pie she had given a stranger on a Thursday because he looked honest about being lost. She thought, I have been the fool in this story. Then she thought, not anymore. She did not cry that night. She made a decision instead. Helen had always been good with numbers. Anyone who hawked for years developed that skill out of necessity. Knowing margins, managing stock, calculating profit before the sun set. She had simply never been given a room large enough for those skills to breathe. She found that room herself. She enrolled in an evening business program at a private institute in Lagos Island. She told David she was visiting a friend on those evenings. David did not ask twice. He had stopped being curious about her life in any meaningful way. She studied for 2 years. Supply chain management, logistics, business development. She was older than most of her classmates and sharper than nearly all of them. Her lecturer told her once that she thought differently from everyone in the room, like someone who had learned about real pressure before she learned about textbooks. Helen knew exactly what he meant. In her second year, she registered a small business, Helenova Logistics and Supply. She used her savings, a small loan from a cooperative she had joined quietly, and every hour David was not watching. She started with delivery contracts, small ones, local ones, and she built carefully the way she had learned to build everything in her life, slowly, without anyone's applause, one reliable day at a time. By the time David brought his new girlfriend home to meet her, a woman named Sonia, polished and light-skinned and working in finance, Helen was already in her 3rd year of building something David could not imagine. She received Sonia with perfect calm. She served them both tea. She smiled at the right moment. She felt nothing except clarity. David watched her face all evening, looking for pain. He found none. It unsettled him more than tears would have. 3 months after that evening, Helen moved out of the Ikorodu flat. She left his key on the kitchen table and a single note that said, "Thank you for the years. I found somewhere better to be." David called 4 times. She answered none of them. Helenova Logistics had spent 2 years becoming exactly the kind of company that large corporations needed. Certified, reliable, competitively priced, and run by someone who understood pressure intimately. When the procurement director of David's company reached out for a supplier presentation, Helen accepted the meeting without knowing which company it was. She found out 2 days before. She almost cancelled. Then she thought about a wooden tray on a dusty expressway, about a sewing machine carried away by a stranger, about a small flat in Ikorodu and a best dress that had been mended too many times. She kept the appointment. She walked into that conference room on the 14th floor of Zenith Tower and she saw David's face go from authority to stone in the space of 1 second. She presented for 40 minutes. Her numbers were clean. Her delivery record was perfect. Her references were impeccable. She answered every question from the board without looking at David once. At the end, the procurement director said, "This is exactly what we've been looking for." David said nothing. After the room cleared, he found her in the corridor. David, the man in the fitted charcoal suit, said, "Helen, can we talk?" Helen, the woman in the ivory blazer, said, checking her phone, "My next meeting is in 20 minutes. David, the man in the fitted charcoal suit, said, stepping closer, "I didn't know. I had no idea you had built all of this." Helen, the woman in the ivory blazer, said, without anger, without softness, "You weren't paying attention, David. You stopped paying attention a long time ago." David, the man in the fitted charcoal suit, said, quietly, "I made a mistake." Helen, the woman in the ivory blazer, said, looking at him directly, "Yes, you did. And I made one too. I spent 4 years believing your promises were worth more than my own potential. I won't make that mistake again." She put her phone in her bag and walked toward the elevator. She did not look back. The contract went to Helenova. David's colleagues talked about the CEO for weeks. Her composure, her numbers, her quiet authority in that room. Someone looked her up. Someone shared her story on LinkedIn. The post went quietly viral in Nigerian corporate circles. David saw it. He read every word. 3 months later, Sonia left him. She said he had become someone she did not recognize. Distracted, guilty, unable to explain why a supplier presentation had changed something fundamental in him. David lost his job 6 months after that. Restructuring, they called it. But everyone knew the performance reviews had been declining since that afternoon in the conference room. He called Helen one final time. Not with charm this time, not with the warm voice that had once said her name like it was something precious. He called with nothing left. No performance, no pretense, just a man who had finally run out of everything except the truth. He said, "I need help. I don't know who else to call." Helen was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Send your CV to our HR email. If your experience matches what we need, someone from my team will be in touch." He said, "Helen," she said, "that's all I can offer you, David. Not because I hate you, because that's all you are to me now, a potential candidate. Nothing more." She ended the call. She sat back in her chair, in her office, in the company she had built from a loan and a broken dream, and she felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Peace, clean and complete and entirely her own. The girl with the tray had not disappeared. She had simply grown into someone the tray could never have contained. Now tell us, did David deserve a second chance, or did Helen give him exactly what he earned? Drop your answer in the comments. We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching this story. If it touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to join our family of storytellers. Share this with someone who needs encouragement today. And don't forget to comment below. Tell us what you think or share your own story. We're all in this together. God bless you. Gracious Folk Tales.